Let's bring in Paul Kelly now, Editor-at-Large at the Australian. Paul, I'll get to the lockdown that we're seeing a lot around so much of the country at the moment, but let's talk about, first of all, how you assess the fallout, the wash-up from the Barnaby Joyce resurrection and his reshuffle.
Well, I think the reshuffle is a sign of ineptitude. It's just extraordinary. I think it shows two things above all, Kieran. First of all, he was motivated very much by this ruthless approach of promoting his supporters and demoting those who didn't support him in an extremely naked and I think counterproductive way. I mean, one can only imagine the National Party is now more divided than ever. The other point to make, of course, is that Keith Pitt, the Resources Minister, ends up outside the Cabinet, which is a completely ludicrous situation. Clearly, Scott Morrison was concerned about this and raised the issue with Barnaby Joyce. But seeing the whole point of Barnaby Joyce coming back was to build up the influence of the National Party. And clearly resources is one of the areas of prime concern of the National Party. The idea that the National Party Resources Minister ends up outside the Cabinet is frankly crazy, and what this means presumably is that there'll be a Liberal Cabinet Minister charged with responsibility of talking about resources within the Cabinet. Overall, a pretty unimpressive start.
Let's look at the politics of this unfolding situation. Lockdowns in southeast Queensland and then further north, Townsville, Magnetic Island, Darwin, Perth, the Peel region, Sydney surrounding areas as well. How are the politics of this being played out, do you think? Because the states, all of the premiers, are talking about the pace or lack of for the vaccine rollout.
Well, the politics are, first of all, that the premiers run the show. They run health policy. They run the response to the virus. We learnt that last year and it continues this year. And this is clearly a great source of frustration for Scott Morrison. And the critical thing at the moment is New South Wales. How New South Wales goes in terms of the frontline war against the latest variant of the virus. So that is really important. But the bottom line which will hurt Scott Morrison the whole time, is people saying, and the Premier saying, that the ultimate protection against this is the vaccine, and the vaccine rollout is too slow. Clearly, the vaccine rollout is not going to be completed until the end of this year. So I think we're going to have a very troubled year in terms of the response of the premiers, which will be lockdowns and border closures. And I think the real political person who'll be penalised from this, the person who'll suffer from it, will be the Prime Minister. And you can see this now in terms of the Prime Minister shuffling around in terms of vaccine policy.
Yeah, indeed. And now allowing AstraZeneca for those younger Australians, those under 40, if they want access. Now, before you go, I want to get your critique on Anthony Albanese, this language about the Prime Minister had two jobs. Anthony Albanese hasn't always been succinct in his arguments, but it seems he's really zeroing in on an Abbott-like sort of potent line, which, I don't know, I'm not sure whether it's got that same sort of potential, Paul, but it seems to resonate of that sort of Abbott-style approach.
Well, all he's really done is he's simply identified the weakness of Scott Morrison's position. And of course, the Prime Minister said at the start of the year that the vaccine rollout would be the central priority. So the Prime Minister identified this. Clearly the vaccine rollout has gone wrong, and Anthony Albanese is focusing on this and quarantine. That's no surprise. And I think you can see, in terms of the trend in Newspoll, where Morrison is still in front of Anthony Albanese in terms of personal leadership rating, but Morrison's position is eroding, and we've still got a long way to go this year in terms of the politics of the virus. And I think Labor is calculating that it will simply continue this campaign because Morrison's dilemma will continue to exist in terms of the virus and the vaccine, and Anthony Albanese anticipates that he'll make more progress.